To load an external reference into a Max scene, go to the File menu, to Reference, XREF Objects. You'll see there's also an option XREF Scene. We want XREF Objects. That's going to give a lot more control. XREF Scene is not really applicable in this situation because it doesn't provide enough flexibility. Choose XREF Objects, and the XREF Objects dialog launches up. We can see that I've got a bunch of XREF objects already in the scene. And it looks like chair_XREF is selected, but it's actually not. That's kind of a fake out. We need to click on something to actually select it. And when it's selected, we can see down here, there's a list of entities that have been loaded in. And an entity is some kind of scene component, such as an object, material, or an animation controller. Before creating a new reference and loading in a new XREF scene, we want to change up the options here to determine which parts of that incoming scene are going to be externally referenced and which parts are going to be merged or imported into the current scene. To merge an entity means to import it into the current scene and create a new local copy of that entity. For example, merging a material will create a new version of the material in the master scene, and there will be no link to the material in the referenced scene. To XREF an entity means to reference it from the other file and don't import it and make a copy of it in the current scene. So before we choose to create a new XREF record from file, we want to choose our options down here. So I'll click on Nothing here, and then we can choose a preset maybe. There are some options here. For example, Static Assets. What that's going to do is any animation tracks or controllers are going to be copied over. Modifiers or effects applied onto objects are also going to be copied, and they'll be visible in the Modify panel. But materials and manipulators or on-screen controls will be brought in from the external file, and there will not be a local copy. For the asset that I want to bring in, which is the vines model, I want to externally reference everything. I don't want to make a local copy of anything. So I'm going to go up here and change all of these over to XREF. Tracks XREF, Modifiers XREF, and leave Merge Materials and Merge Manipulators turned off. And that's the same as the preset Scene Animated Assets. All right, with these settings, when I bring those vines in, everything will be externally referenced. Click the button to create an XREF record from File, and then navigate to wherever your file is located. In my case, it's in my current project, Scenes XREFs. I do recommend that you only link to files that are in your current project. Otherwise, you'll have problems with tracking those assets. In this case, I'll click on vinesxref.max and click Open. When that file loads, we see we've got some vines on the pergola here, and those vines are currently selected, so I'll click on Nothing to deselect those. And over in the XREF Objects dialog box, we can choose vinesxref.max and see that we've got all of these entities that have been XREF'd in. We've got objects and materials and controllers or animation tracks. To remove an XREF, you'll select it in the list and then click the X button up here. It's really important to know how to do that, especially if you need to make major changes to an externally referenced scene, such as adding or removing objects. 3ds Max has known issues updating changes to XREFs, and you may encounter serious problems. Changes to externally referenced scenes will not be recognized when you load the master scene, even if you click the button here to update, or if you have automatic update turned on. 3ds Max will not respect changes made to the XREF scene. If you do need to make changes, you should remove the XREF from the master scene first. Then open up your externally referenced scene, make your changes, save it, then go back into your master scene and recreate the reference from scratch. And that's kind of a big pain, but you need to do it in that order, or you risk corrupting the XREF data in the master scene. Because there's actually information in the master scene about the externally referenced scene. And if you make changes to the XREF, then that data is not going to be valid anymore. However, if the changes to your XREF are minor, you may be able to update those changes by browsing for an updated file. You can select a reference here, right-click, and from the right-click menu, choose File, Browse. But again, if you make major changes, you're going to want to remove the XREF, then make your changes, and then recreate the XREF. We've added our vines, so we can close the XREF Objects window and save a new version of our master scene. Go to the File menu to Save As, and I'll call it 0315 Create XREF Finished. And click Save. Now let's go back to Windows Explorer and investigate. I'll minimize 3ds Max, and here's my current project Scenes folder. Here's the file that we started with in this demonstration, 0315 Create XREF, and it's 5.5 megabytes. Here's the one we just saved, 0315 Create XREF Finished, and it's 5.8 megabytes. So we've added 0.3 megabytes worth of data to that file, but we've externally referenced in the XREF folder almost 130 megabytes of model data. By using XREFs, the impact on disk space was negligible. And that's how to create an XREF record from an external file.